going to read a sort of 6-7-minute spot initially, just to sort of lay some of the kind of descriptive and expository, introduce a few characters, just to give you a little sense of how it all begins. Mount Vernon, Maine, first days. I had just turned 3 when the proud and wounded young woman from Simpsonport, Louisiana, came to live with us 27 years ago. Bingham was still dangling a scabbed umbilical cord. My father, widowed for a second time, was a country physician with a small community to watch over. Esther Flournoy Bishop was assigned to oversee Bingham and me. In this, Esther's eyes were an advantage. She told us early on she had a glass eye, but for a long time we were never quite sure which was which. Yes, she'd say. Once when my grandparents, the Carries, steamer and movie came up from Mammoco, I had to sleep in Esther's room. I was still quite young and not happy about sharing bed with her. The sheets had that strange, familiar smell of unsolicited intimacy, the lived-in smell of someone else's home. I was glad that she slept facing away. She was not big, but she was filled out and shaped in ways I did not like thinking about, not on her. Fighting the edge of the bed to stay clear of her presenting bottom, I watched the moonlight on the back of her nightgown until I fell asleep. At some point during the night, she rolled over, and I awoke, eyeball to eyeball with that glistening marble of hers. She was sound asleep, but I was as alert as an owl's prey until the sun came up. Even with that bad eye, Esther was pretty in a kind of inattentive way. Every morning, right out of bed, when most people appear disheveled and dream-swollen, she came fresh to the downstairs kitchen. She saw little point in makeup and would cut her own hair just to avoid the fuss. Coffee grounds dark, falling straight and easy from a middle part to the shoulders, it framed her lopsided and piercing look like a finely crafted old mirror. Tucking loose strands behind the ear that was cocked our way, she'd have one eye scanning the frying pan while freezing us at the breakfast table with the other. It was hard for me to know when to make a move. I could see everything that needs seeing, she warned. I learned her blind side soon enough. It was the dimple. She had only one, formed from a small chevron scar that pointed to the lost eye and tucked deep into her cheek when she smiled. Ben and I leaned up to it like saplings to the sun. My father was slowly drawn to her as well, although I believe he was only comparing scars. The unexpected love they later shared was a desperate one. Despite her slight Bayou twang, Esther found herself right back home in Maine. The details could change with each telling, but she claimed to be the descendant of a French trapper from Casco Bay who had been part of the Acadian diaspora during the French and Indian Wars. Dragged away from his Algonquin, Passamaquoddy wife and daughters in the dead of winter, La Jeunesse Renoir had been placed on board a British frigate along with his 2 sons and some other hapless Normandy men, where they were scattered to the North American winds. Like lost milkweed seeds floating off course on their snowy tendrils, La Jeunesse and his boys landed in steamy Louisiana, germinated, and produced the first passel of Jesuit Cajuns that still crop up there today. Esther said he was never happy away from his home up north and drowned one Christmas Eve at the frozen border of Maine while trying to cross the Piscataqua River. That particular detail in the story was memorable and for years haunted me on the ice of walled-in pond as I tried to get into the spirit of the season. But I think Esther was just trying to make a point about the importance of family. Ours, that is. Her own family life had followed the broken trail of La Jeunesse. Lucky for us, she made it across the Piscataqua. Our farm in Mount Vernon, Maine wasn't a real farm. My father only called it one because we had land and were surrounded by farmers. 200 acres of thick, shaly fields, seasonal streams, and white pine forest. Our less arable property pushed apart the corners of 3 working farms, the result of Abenaki land clearing, colonial border disputes, and bad surveying. My father had figured it both ways. He preferred his land as it was now, untouched and wild, only growing things felt a farmer with all the honorable virtues that come with working the land. The fact that he was commuting every other day, 23 miles overland to the hospital in Augusta, was incidental. He made his living in Augusta, but the patients he cared for most were malnourished. In the spring, when the newly thawed fields were swollen and stirring, he called Ben and me out to the front porch and have us stand quietly with eyes closed, just to listen and smell our fine agrarian life, the distant moans of Big Booty's cows, wafting in on the same breeze as the musty manure from Bob Gaffney's chicken farm, and pierced by the intermittent clang of the Renault Thibodeau, stubbornly readying another piece of overworked farm equipment for the season. It was during these times that my father looked content to me, not particularly joyful, but at least peaceful. Sneaking a one-eyed peek at him, I used to hope there was still a chance that he might burst forth in new life just like his land. But as much as he loved his place on earth, he was already preparing for the life thereafter. My father's hair had turned early, long before I was able to recognize how misfortune makes its marks. Esther would usually cut it for him after tending to her own, and he would wear it apart, high up on the side of his head like I'd seen in old photographs of his father. Only the thinnest remains of black streaked through the smooth white hair when Esther ran a wet comb through it. It made him look dashing in an old-fashioned way. Tall, straight spine, with wide shoulders always held back, and a determined jaw like an icebreaker. My father, despite everything, cut an impressive figure right up to the end. But it was difficult to look him in the eyes. Unlike Esther, he could see just fine, never needed glasses, and prided himself on it. But I knew, like her, he had seen bad things. It was mostly out of childish fear that I avoided meeting his glance, and maybe some awe